use the Oura Ring to track my sleep so I can see the amount of total sleep, the amount of REM sleep, the amount of deep sleep, all the things during my sleep cycle. And so Oura has a flaw, and I've called them out on it. The flaw in the ring is they assume you're a continuous sleeper all throughout the night. But what about those of us who are segmented sleepers? What about those of us who sleep the first half of our sleep, we get up for a few hours, then we go back to bed? There needs to be a toggle on that app because I'm always getting dinged in my total sleep score because I am a segmented sleeper, and they have not figured out that yet. I put it on their radar. They said they're going to talk about it, how they could fix it for people like me. But I wonder how many people there are like me, or if I'm just the weirdo. But medieval times, segmented sleeping was pretty normal. In pre-modern Europe, and perhaps centuries earlier, people routinely went to sleep right around nightfall, which is, you guys that follow me, I do my ice bath at 5 p.m., and by about 7 to 7:30, I'm headed for the bed. And so if I'm in the bed at 7:30, 5 hours later is 12:30. Well, that's 5 hours in bed. That's probably around 3.5 to 4-ish hours, maybe longer sometimes, of sleep. And then I'm awake, wide awake. And I get on up. I even check my sleep data on the Oura. Usually it's about an hour, hour and a half of deep. At that point, probably 45 minutes to an hour of REM. So I've already gotten some good restful sleep. I get up, do things for a few hours, nothing crazy, not going to work out or anything, but nothing crazy. And then I go back to sleep somewhere between like 3:30 to 5. And then I go back to sleep and sleep a few more hours, and I'm up for my day. And the cumulative sleep that I get, restorative sleep, deep and REM, you guys see it. I mean, it's phenomenal. I get more than 2 hours of deep just about every night, most of the time significantly more. I get a good amount of REM sleep, usually an hour and a half or more per night. So this is not messing with my rest. And I've been doing this as my sleep pattern right about since October. So I would wake up in the middle of the night as of circa 2-3 years ago, 3 o'clock, and I'd sometimes get a nap in the middle of the day or whatever. But this pattern of going to sleep 7:30, getting up about 12:30, going back to sleep around 3:30 to 5, and then getting up for my day, I've been doing that since October. And it's not like I planned it. I didn't plan that, oh my gosh, I should start segmented sleep. No, it just kind of happened. It was almost like a turning on of a circadian rhythm of sorts. And I don't know. I mean, I do have Irish background, so maybe a little bit of the medieval is coming out from my Irish background. Who knows? But it's kind of interesting, right? It's very interesting. So routinely they would go to sleep around nightfall when the sun goes down. That's about what I do as well. They wake up around midnight. Again, that's what I do. Today, as of today, I got up at, it was like right before midnight. It was like 11:45 and I was awake. Only to go back to sleep a few hours later and then wake up like they normally do in the morning. Who says you have to have this continuous sleep all throughout your night? Fascinating, right? Now, if you get good sleep, continuous sleep all throughout your night, don't change your pattern. I'm just showing you that there are other ways of sleeping and getting in good rest. They slept sort of like I do, but they were zen about it, talking about the medieval time people. Then all the biohackers with sleep claim modern life came along and ruined it by pressuring everybody that they had to sleep in one big chunk. I will admit, the whole 8 hours of sleep a night, just like drink 8 glasses of water. There's so many little colloquialisms in our society about good health habits that we just believe only because they've been out there forever. And yet, how many of them are actually true? And the 8 hours of sleep doesn't apply. I think kids need a whole lot more sleep. Somewhere around 9 to 11 hours of sleep for kids is typical for a healthy kid. For typical adults, it could vary widely. And those of you that eat in ketosis, that definitely changes things as well, because you don't need as much sleep when you're keto and you're fat burning. You can probably get away with 6.5 to 7 hours. Other people need 8 to 9 hours. So it's highly variable, highly bio-individual. The romanticization of pre-industrial sleep is fascinating to me, according to the author of this article. It also snapped into a popular template of the contemporary internet analysis. If you experience a moment's unpleasantness, first blame modern capitalism. So I reached out to a historian named Roger Eckhart. His work broke open the field of segmented sleep more than 20 years ago. In the 1980s, he was researching a book about nighttime before the Industrial Revolution. One day in London, he was wading through public records. He stumbled onto references to a first sleep and second sleep. So this was normal in the 1600s. He found this data actually from a crime report. So a crime was reported, and they said, well, it was in the middle of his first sleep and his second sleep that the crime occurred. And so this was fascinating. He had never seen those phrases before. When he started broadening the search, he found mentions of a first sleep in Italian. I'm going to slaughter these, but primo sonno is Italian for first sleep. French, premier sommeil. And even in Latin, primo somno. He found documentation in Africa, the Middle East, South Asia, and Latin America of these sleep cycles as well. Remember, segmented sleep, first sleep, second sleep. When sleep was divided into a 2-act play, people were creative with how they spent the intermission. This is a fun part. They didn't have anxious conversations with imaginary doctors. They actually did something. During this awake time called Dorville, people got up to use the bathroom. They hung out by the fire. Not unsurprisingly, they had sex, or they used it as a time of prayer. They reflected on their dreams, and they commingled with the spiritual realm, both the divine and the diabolical. In the 1540s, Martin Luther wrote of his strategies to ward off the devil. Almost every night when I wake up, I instantly chase him away with a fart. So, I had never heard that quote from Martin Luther. A lot of people ask me, Jimmy, how do you get such good deep sleep? Well, there's a lot of things that I do, but one of the newest things that I recently added is this upgraded magnesium from a company called Upgraded Formulas. Go to their website, upgradedformulas.com, and you can learn all about this nano technology that they use for this particular mineral of magnesium. Again, it's called Upgraded Magnesium, and it's got all the different forms of magnesium in it, using the nanotechnology so it gets absorbed a lot better. Guys, I have seen my deep sleep improve by as much as 30 to 40% simply by adding in this product along with sunshine exposure, darkness in the room, cooler temperature, all of the things that I always have done. So again, upgradedformulas.com is the website. Go check them out. Today's sleep writers often wield Eichart's research to suggest that segmented sleep, or what Eichart refers to as biphasic sleep, two-phase, that's what biphasic, is old, and one sleep is now new. And therefore, today's sleepers are doing it all wrong. But that's not the full story, he told me. And look, if you sleep that one cycle and you get all the rest that you need, please keep doing that. I'm trying to help those people who do have those urges to wake up at, say, midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're wide awake. I can relate. I started feeling that right around 3:30 or so, like I said, 2.5 to 3-ish years ago. I first started noticing that. And then it slowly went back a little bit more. It started being 2 or 2:30. And then it went back a little more, about 1:30 to 2. And just slowly over time, it moved back to a point that I went, okay, something's happening with my sleep. And so now it's like clockwork. I will go to sleep. I will try to anyway. Usually around 7 to 7:30, sometimes pushing 8 o'clock. And then I will wake up somewhere between midnight and 1. and then I'll be up for about 3 hours, and then I'll go back to bed for another 2 to 2.5, 3 hours. That's been my routine since October, and I didn't force that, it just happened. Pre-industrial sleep was nothing to romanticize. Death stalked our slumber for many centuries. Late night crime was rampant. The home itself was a death trap, as slapdash construction left houses vulnerable to fires, leaking roofs, terrible heat and cold, and what Eckrich calls the trifecta of early modern entomology: fleas, lice, and bed bugs. As for that romantic French doorbell, it's functionally a second workday for many women. So when you get up in the middle of the night, you have that little chunk of time to do things. For the women in the medieval times, they used it to clean house and get other chores done that need to be done around the house, maybe preparing or prepping the early preparations for that morning's meal that they would be having. So they would get up at midnight to finish all their domestic chores, and ancient soporifics such as poisonous leaves and various opiate concoctions were roughly as likely to kill you as they were to give you REM. So they would sometimes take things that would help them get good sleep, and other times it would kill them. Beginning in the 1700s, the Industrial Revolution, with its light, its caffeine, its clocks, and above all, its work schedule, took Europe's biphasic sleep in its hairy arms and mushed the two faces together. So right around the 1700s is when this happened, you guys, where they used to, in medieval times, have that segmented sleep where they'd have a first sleep, second sleep with a little section in the middle of the night to do things. And then when the Industrial Revolution came along with the light and the noise and the new work pattern and all the things that now make us stay hyper alert during the daytime, and then we crash at night, one continuous sleep, that's when it happened. A surging economy made a virtue of productivity, and it instilled, quote, an increasing sense of time consciousness in the Western world. By the mid-1800s, early rising movements had taken off in England and America. New artificial lights would delay your bedtime. So remember, back in the day, in medieval times, when the lights went down because the sun set, there were no, I got bright lights shining on my face right now. There was nothing like that. They had candles, and that does not emit blue light. And so all that blue light exposure delays your bedtime. We used to go to bed very early. Very early. That was typical. We went to bed with the sun going down, and we got up before the sun got up. Did a few things, a few hours in the dark, went back to sleep, and by the time we got up the second sleep, the light was out and we were awake. And that's the way the body had always done things. But now these artificial lights delayed the bedtime. New factory schedules required you to get up early. The lit world altered our internal clocks. Charles Schleicher, a Harvard sleep scientist, said, every time we turn on a light, we inadvertently take a drug that wakes us up. This is why, for those of you that struggle with your sleep, one of the things I say to do is, as the sun goes down, so should your lights in your house. When it's, after I do my ice bath at 5 o'clock, the sun's kind of going down at that point. After I get off of my live talking to you guys, I typically will go dry off and get on some fresh clothes, and then I immediately turn down the lights in my house. And what that does is it's telling my brain it's nighttime, it's time to start getting sleepy, and it's time to start trying to get some good rest. When a 1990 study at the National Institutes of Mental Health deprived a cohort of male subjects of light at night, guess what happened? Their sleep became segmented after just a few weeks. I think this is what's happened to Jimmy Moore. I have been working on my sleep for many years. You guys know I've been talking about sleep for a long time. But the segmented sleep, I think, started slowly developing in this 2.5 to 3 years ago when I would wake up at, say, 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I didn't realize it at the time that that's what was happening. But that's what was happening.